In this video, I want to talk about the holistic healing process. Usually if I say the words, holistic healing, most people think about some symptom or some condition going away, usually because of some alternative healing method, but it's a lot deeper than that. The truth is, it really involves a lifelong process of our growth and evolution, and hence holistic healing process. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. My name is Jay Eaker from the BioSoul Integration Center in Louisville, Colorado, serving Louisville, Boulder, Erie, Superior, Westminster, Broomfield. Hope I didn't miss anyone. But I help people embody their soul's gifts and their soul's essence, to bring the essence of their souls, the uniqueness and its gifts into their body so they can share those gifts on the planet. Please like this video, share it, give me a thumbs up, and do that stuff also wherever you might find it, on social media, on my podcast, the BioSoul Integration podcast, wherever you find it. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about do a little, academic wordsmithing here. The word heal comes from an Old English word which means to make whole. The word holistic comes from a Greek word that means also whole. So on one level, the word holistic healing might seem kind of redundant, but really it kind of describes what's happening with holistic healing, which is, it's like the whole making things whole. There's a whole that is creating wholeness in things, in reality. And that's kind of reflected, the guy that came up with the term holistic healing, some dude from the 20s in South Africa who is like a philosopher, or not exactly sure, some smart guy. But he coined the term holistic healing in reference to nature's tendency to form wholes that are greater than the sum of the parts through creative evolution. Nature's tendency to form wholes that are greater than the sum of the parts through creative evolution. So there's that evolution word. Like you are a whole that nature has created. You are greater than the sum of your parts. You can't just, you are not just a bag of chemicals and bone, and you're not just a heart and a lung and lungs and a pancreas and a brain. Somehow all of that works together to create this, to create the, amazingness that is you. So you're greater than the sum of your parts. And that's kind of what that word wholeness means in that regard. So, the holistic healing process is a process of creative evolution. So, there's a way in which the sort of baseline state, the basic state of, what's the most whole, all-encompassing thing you can think of? Probably God, or the universe, some people call it, or source. The thing that all of this is sort of springing up from, and the thing that holds it all. So the baseline state of God, or the universe, or source, is one of infinite complexity and infinite harmony. Infinite complexity that coexists with infinite harmony. I think that's the oneness, if you will. That describes the oneness that spiritual teachers and spiritual leaders talk about. And there's a way in which so there's this process of nature, of life, of sort of always creating new things popping up over, you know, whether it's people, whether it's animals, whether it's new stuff happening in life, new situations, new conditions. It's constantly making unique new things. And also at the same time, all of those new things are becoming more, are connected, are becoming more connected at the same time. And so there is this way in which nature is kind of like driving, there's a river, a force that's flowing constantly in the direction of both greater complexity and greater harmony, which leads to our evolution. You know, there's always things sort of constantly unfolding and evolving. So I'm going to try to describe that with an analogy. how this sort of creative evolution that's unfolding all the time happens. I'm going to try to describe that with an analogy, which is this pond analogy that I've came up with. So you sort of start with, I don't know if you've ever seen like a pond or a lake or, you know, some body of water on a really calm day. It's just like, you know, glassy, smooth. But then, you know, some clouds come and maybe it starts to rain. And you see one drop falls on the pond, on this glassy surface, you know, then 2 drops, and then 3, and then 4, and then it starts to speed up. When a drop hits the pond, right, there's these ripples that go out into the pond. And then another drop happens, and another drop happens. And at first, those ripples stay separate, but eventually, those ripples start to combine. And so, the pond is sort of an analogy for life. And the drops are represented by any event, anything, you know, whether it's an animal species that shows up, whether it's humans, whether it's an event, whether, you know, it's a situation, an event, you know, like the pandemic happens, like that's an event that causes ripples. Vaccines show up, that's an event that causes ripples. You know, for some reason I keep thinking of all the crazy things that are happening lately, like shootings or whatever, you know, that's an event that sort of like creates ripples. Someone gets married, that's an event that creates ripples. So you get the idea. That's sort of creating ripples and ripples of influence out into life, you know. All these events and things sort of affect people in certain ways. But when, again, we get to a point where sort of like the ripples of one thing sort of start to combine with the ripples of another thing, and sort of like from a physics standpoint, if on a pond, those ripples, when they hit each other, there's a combination that happens. They're both waves. On one level, they keep going. On another level, something new is created. Those waves each are changed, and something new is created through their combination. And so then you have, you know, both of those waves that have been changed. And those changed waves, they start to run into other ripples, other waves, which changes those waves and changes the waves even further. So you can see there's this sort of like, you know, combination that keeps happening. There's greater complexity that happens. And so eventually you have this situation where every wave in the pond has been changed, has been affected by, has influenced every other wave. And so you have individual waves still, they're still individual waves, but somehow each individual has been influenced and connected by the whole. And sort of, again, that analogy represents us on this earth. I don't know, us in existence, really. That's what's happening here. And again, you can see how there's this way in which, again, the waves combine, they influence each other and make something new. Other events still are happening, which is creating new waves all the time. And so there's constant, other things. People are being born, people are dying, things are happening. It creates new waves and new ripples out into the pond of life all the time, which are combining and then influencing the whole thing. So there's this way in which it's a thing of greater, diversity happening, but at the same time more connection, greater complexity, but at the same time greater harmony that's happening all the time. And so that's this process of creative evolution that we are subject to. This is the natural state of the universe, to constantly create more complexity and also harmony at the same time, simultaneous complexity and harmony. And we are woven into you and I and everything that exists is woven into the fabric of the universe and constantly subject to this driving force of creative evolution, of greater complexity and harmony, at the same time. Also, this, so like, when there's so that means we're all, it's like the 6 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon or whatever, sort of on an existential level. There's a way in which, somehow you and I are connected. Somehow you are connected to everything else in some way. I mean, like, you see my video, you see the clock or the salt lamp in my video. And I don't know, maybe that's the 4th time you've seen one of my videos, and unconsciously you start thinking, maybe I need to get me a salt lamp. So you go get yourself a salt lamp, maybe without really recognizing this because you saw it in my video or something. And so not only are you more connected to salt lamps, but somehow, in a strange way, you are connected to my salt lamp, affected by my salt lamp somehow. You get what I'm saying? So there's a way in which everything is connected to everything else, and any change that happens in one part of the pond, there's affects the other part of the pond and affects the whole pond too. So there's things that happen in the environment that affect the economy. There are things that happen to animals that affect humans. There are things that happen to me that affect you, that affect all of us. If something happens to you, there's a way in which it affects everyone at the same time. So there's a way in which we're all connected by the changes, by this compounding complexity and harmony that's constantly happening, which also transcends time. So we are connected to change, all the change that has happened in the past, that's happening now, that will happen in the future. So there's a way in which it transcends time. But so, yeah, we're getting kind of mind-blowing complicated here, but that's what it takes. That's what evolution takes, to integrate a greater level of complexity with also a greater level of harmony. So like I said, most people kind of live in a world where, as far as health and healing goes, again, most people they say healing something, they say, they see that as like a symptom or a problem that, is healed, means that it goes away. But from the context of what I'm saying, which is this larger context, pain, a problem, a challenge, a crisis, that happens as life and as nature is asking us. If you have a problem or a pain, or, a physical pain or a health issue or whatever, there's a level, a way in which that's happening because life is asking you to reconcile a greater, you're on the edge of a breakthrough. You're being pushed to stretch. Life is asking you to stretch, to reconcile a greater level of complexity and harmony. Like a pain, a problem, a challenge, a crisis, like the one that we're having now in the world. It asks us to take a closer look. A lot of times something hurts, whether it's in your body, whether it's emotionally, whether it's in your body, your life. Something hurts because, it's things that we're not aware of that make it hurt, that make something painful. And so pain or a problem or crisis comes along as we're being asked to, and what it asks us to do is take a closer look at ourselves, to pick things apart, to fine-tune our awareness and notice things more closely, to think differently, to behave differently, to feel more, to include more of yourself and feel more and feel differently. Asking you to sort of include more of yourself and sort of expand all of these parts of yourself, your awareness, whether it's on a physical level or your emotional level or mental level. And if any sort of like real change, meaning like real evolution is going to happen, then we have to be sort of affected on all of those levels, on the physical, the mental, emotional, the social, the spiritual level. I mean, even the WHO, the World Health Organization, defines health as a state of physical, mental, emotional, and social well-being, not just a lack of symptoms or disease or whatever. So they even include that, these different parts of us: physical, mental, emotional, social, and I would include sort of spiritual. And so if change is going to happen, if an evolution, a real change, like a fundamental change is going to happen, it has to affect all of those levels. There has to be this holistic healing process, this process of our evolution. And, if it's not holistic, if it doesn't involve those things, often, if it doesn't involve all of those parts of us, a holistic view, then often there's not really any sort of fundamental change that happens. So I think, as far as healing goes in the health world, that can be seen as like in the situation where, like, you go to your medical doctor and maybe they prescribe an antidepressant, or they prescribe some drug that just say you have high blood pressure, they prescribe some drug that lowers your blood pressure, but nothing else has changed. And the truth is your high blood pressure has to do with the way that you're interacting with yourself and your world, and a limit that you've put on emotions that you'll give yourself permission to feel, and the stories that you tell yourself. So they just changed the reading of your blood pressure, but did that change anything else? No. And there are problems that can show up down the road, like what are some of the side effects of high blood, like you lose the ability to get it up, for instance, and that has a huge effect on what kind of effect does that have on your overall quality of life? A huge effect, right? So there are side effects that happen from that. Like you go to maybe, even in the more holistic healing world, like you go to a chiropractor, let's say, and they adjust your spine, and that's mostly, you know, on a structural level. So there's things going on a structural level, there's things going on a chemical level, there's things going on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, on all those levels, and they change your structure, and great, maybe your pain goes away for a little bit, but what happens often for, you know, things that people report with chiropractors is that the pain comes back, and they're complaining that they have to keep going over and over, going back over and over again, or go back forever because to get their sort of fix. Well, there's some way in which it's not holistic, you know, it's not including other parts of us. You go to a therapist maybe, and you understand your situation, you learn to understand your situation academically speaking, like you understand, like, oh, this is what happened to me when I was a kid, and my parents were this way, and so I understand, you know, why I have the issues, the psychological issues that I have now, and certainly that can help, but, you know, often people run into a roadblock where, you know, there's a level in which things they don't change, despite the fact that they know why they keep, you know, why they have trouble in relationships, but they still continue to run into the same problems in relationship. You know, New Age philosophy says maybe, you know, you need to change your stinking thinking, and that's the solution to your problems. But that you find that, you know, no matter how hard you try to sort of change your stinking thinking, you know, you can't create a sort of a fundamental change. So those are ways in which, when an approach is sort of not, you know, approach to healing or health is not holistic, that it falls short, or there's not any sort of fundamental change. And that doesn't mean that those things are bad. It doesn't mean that the medical model is bad. It doesn't mean that those other forms of alternative care are bad, or that, you know, any of them should be pushed away or should be, you know, blindly sort of followed. But there are going to be times along the healing process of your life, maybe where, you know, at different times, maybe some work like I'm doing here at my office is going to be useful. I like to think that I have sort of a holistic approach on some level. I'm definitely including the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual on a certain level. And certainly the work that I do here would enhance any other work that you do anywhere else. However, there might be times when you need to come at things from a different angle. Maybe you need a more physical approach, you know, some chiropractic or Rolfing or something like that. Maybe you need psychotherapy. I mean, like when I've had people come to me who maybe are dealing with an addiction, if they're dealing with an active addiction, you know, there's definitely a way in which they probably need to, if they're going to be seeing me, they also need to be seeing a therapist or someone who works specifically with addiction, you know. So it's not to sort of say one thing is better than another. In fact, no, there are going to be times when we need these different things to sort of, you know, hit the issue or the problem from all the angles that are necessary to sort of like hit the whole thing, all the angles, and allow for a fundamental change. I mean, I'm thinking about when you may or may not know this, my daughter, she's 7 now, and she's doing awesome. She's beautiful and healthy. But when she was 1.5, she had cancer. She had a kidney tumor. And we looked at alternative things, but, you know, the alternative stuff couldn't really promise what the medical world could promise, which was they knew that if they did certain things that she had a 95% chance of being just fine. And so obviously we went down that road. She had her kidney removed. You know, she had surgery. She had chemotherapy and radiation, and you know, those things were necessary. But they were necessary to save her life. But we also did a lot of alternative stuff along with that to detox her body of the chemicals and things to help her, the trauma from what she might have experienced, and so on. So, yeah, just because, like the medical world is kind of the home of reductionist thinking, reductionist thinking. The opposite of holistic, I guess, would be reductionist, where you are constant, you're chopping everything up into little bits and you're just looking at the bits. And, they have all these specialties in the medical world. You can't just go to one, you have to, if you go to a doctor with a problem, they send you to a specialist. They send you to someone who specializes in the kidneys, or they send you to someone who specializes in the heart, or whatever. And likewise, just because it's alternative doesn't necessarily mean it's holistic, completely holistic either. So holistic healing in your evolution might involve a variety and combination of things, healing modalities and things throughout the course of your lifetime. Okay, so just to kind of wrap things up, holistic healing, like I said, it's a lifetime process of evolution. It's not just making something go away. And I think, one of the important end results of that is of the holistic healing process is that we eventually become, we become aware of our gifts, our soul's gifts, and we become compelled to sort of share them. So we become more aware of our individuality, right? Our individual nature is amplified and expressed more completely, but also at the same time, we end up giving our gifts to serve others. And so that's kind of the way, again, the sort of integration of individuality with more connection, complexity, greater complexity with more harmony. And actually the world, the universe, everyone on the planet needs you to do the thing that you came here to do. The thing, your unique gifts are instrumental in this process of creative evolution that's happening on the planet and the universe, in fact. And the universe, the planet, the people on this planet need you to do the thing that you came here to do. And I think that's the ultimate sort of outcome of the holistic healing process. Okay, so if you found this video interesting or useful, please like it, please share it, please pass it along to those who might be interested. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I look forward to helping you express more life. Have a great day.